What's going on, YouTube? Today we're going to be talking about the difference between a Wusthof chef knife. This is an 8-inch, 200 millimeter, 20 centimeter, and this is the Shun Premier 8-inch chef's knife, and the model number on that is TDM0706. This is just the Wusthof Classic 8-inch chef's knife, and I just wanted to cover some differences and some similarities between these two knives. I've had the full set of Wusthof knives with like the scissors and the butcher block and all that. I've had it for probably between 2 and 2.5 years. My wife got it for me. I had J.A. Hankel's before that, and she got me this, I believe, 2 years ago for my birthday or for Christmas, one of the two. But I wanted to go over some differences, and mostly differences, a couple similarities, but mostly differences in Japanese and Western style cutlery. So, a couple key points with Western style cutlery. Usually the steel is stainless 9 times out of 10. Actually, maybe even 10 times out of 10. I've never come across Western cutlery that's not stainless, but that could just be my own ignorance. But usually it's a softer run steel. I believe these are run around like 57 Rockwell. You know, it's run pretty thick behind the edge, so you can hit a chicken bone and you'll be fine. You know, you can still slice through apples and carrots and stuff just fine. You're not going to get like the wedge effect where it breaks open. You know, this, you can cut right through. You do get a belly with it, so you can do a rock and chop motion. You know, you get good length with it. I prefer to hold the knife in a pinch grip, but you can use like a hammer grip on it, but I don't know anybody that chops with a hammer grip. I prefer a pinch grip, and I usually do like pull strokes most of the time. This will keep an edge for, in my kitchen use, up to 2 weeks, I would say, without needing to be stropped heavily, or, you know, just like a quick touch up on the stones. I'll use a steel to align the edge back. That's the plus side with Western cutlery, since it is run a little bit softer. You know, you can bring your edge back with the steel or a strop a little bit easier. Like, it's more malleable, so your edge will get back to center if it rolls to one side. That's where Japanese cutlery is not as forgiving. Japanese cutlery is run harder. This is VG Max, so this is stainless. There's 34 layers clad in here, and it's VG Max is basically VG10, but it's like you know, Kai's own version, or Shun. Kai is the company who owns Shun. I believe they run it to 62 HRC, I think. Don't quote me on it. It's like 61, 62. So this is a pretty hard knife. It's really, it's been really easy for me to sharpen. This steel will chip if you hit a bone. I've never had anything, you know, chip on me with this knife. You know, I've always treated this knife really well. I only use it on wood cutting boards. You can use it on plastic cutting boards. Never use it on glass. Even a Western style knife, never use your knives on glass cutting boards. I know some people have those. That's terrible for your knives. If you want to make your knife dull in the first time you use it, put it on a glass cutting board and chop some onion up, and it'll be dull before you even finish chopping the onion. Wood cutting board is all I'll use for this for the most part. Again, I will use plastic here or there, but for the most part, I have a dedicated wood cutting board that I use with this. This also has belly, so you can, chop with it. You could do like a rock and chop. This handle is incredibly comfortable, especially for a pinch grip. The bolster here is really thin where it meets the the tang of the blade, and it has a pack-a-wood handle that has the Coke bottle effect. So it does go from skinny to fat, back to skinny, and then from about the last third to the rear, it's the same width. It's a little bit thinner in the middle, right here, and then it fattens right in the beginning, and then gets skinny at the bolster. So it's perfect for a pinch grip. So like your pointer and thumb would go at the bolster, and then the other three fingers would wrap around, and it basically works in the way that your fingers are in length. So your middle finger and your ring finger hit the meatier part of the handle, and then your pinky, because it's shorter, goes around the skinnier part of the handle. So your fingers end up in alignment, which is good. Like I said, you can rock and chop with this. I usually do pull cuts more so. If I'm chopping up an onion, I'll hold the onion and do a push cut through. This is really thin behind the edge. It's actually pretty tough to even see. Hopefully you guys can see the edge right there. You can see it at the back, but it's really, really thin. It has really nice fit and finish. There's no sharp edges on this knife at all. Everything is like rounded over. Even the back here at the heel of the knife, the back part of it is actually rounded right here. So if you do hold your knife like this, your pointer finger can get, if you hold it in a pinch grip, your pointer finger can get right up to the heel of the knife, and you don't have a sharp point right here. It's actually just rounded a little bit, but you still get full control all the way back to maybe the last 2 millimeters of the blade, where it just is rounded a hair. This will last me 2 to 3 weeks, I would say, maybe even like 3 to 4 weeks. 61 to 62 with the VG Max, or VG10 in general. VG10 is a fairly malleable steel, but they do run it a little bit harder, so you're more prone to chipping, but it's still malleable enough that you can use a steel with it. So both of these knives are fairly easy to sharpen. The Shun will take a little bit finer of an edge, I find, and keeps it a little bit longer. That's the benefit with Japanese cutlery, is usually you get a thinner geometry. You can get finer edges because of the steel that they use, and it'll keep it usually a little bit longer as long as you have a good heat treat on it. And I find that Shun gives it a decent heat treat. It's nothing to write home about, but for just like a consumer grade chef's knife and for a good warranty, it's worth it. The difference between like a Premier and the Classic is the Premier gives you a sashimi finish, which means hammer pattern or hammer finish, and that's why these dimples are here. That's also supposed to help with the release of food. It helps a little bit. And then the Damascus pattern cladding that you find down here, which is basically just for aesthetics. There's no benefit to it other than pure aesthetics. And the Wusthof Classic is just one piece of steel all the way back. I'm almost positive of that. unless at the bolster they do like a weld for the handle. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'd probably have to look that up, but either way, you have one solid piece here. The Shun, I'm like 99.9% sure that they do weld at the bolster, so the handle is different from the blade. The blade is made up, or the handle is made up of packawood, so it's very resistant to water. You probably could put this in the dishwasher and it wouldn't ruin it. I would never do that to any of my knives, even the German Western cutlery that even a Henkel piece of shit knife I wouldn't put in the dishwasher. Never put your kitchen knives in the dishwasher. Always hand wash them. This knife normally does come with like a better polish on it. The reason why this looks a little bit more hazy and it is not as aesthetically pleasing as a brand new out of the box is my wife and I bought the green Scotch-Brite sponges, and I didn't even think, and it was after the first day using it, I used the green sponge on this and I had deep scratches all the way down, so I ended up having to buff and hand sand and buff this, and you can still see that there are some vertical scratches along the way. That's going to happen. Not a big deal. This is made to get used. That's why I have it. So it's no big deal in my opinion. The Shun logo is vaguely still there. Most of it's gone because of the polishing and stuff, but it's whatever. The weight of this is basically it's a little bit knife forward, but pretty much at the bolster where you pinch grip, it's just about perfectly even. You can see there it's sitting balanced. So it's a very light feeling blade, but still having some heft in the handle, so you can get through. When you're chopping, you still have enough weight that you can get through it. The Wusthof is definitely heavier, and it's way more handle heavy than it is knife heavy. The center point on this is just behind the guard here, and I think a lot of the reason is because you have the bolster, or the knife has like a guard here for your hand. And the only downfall of this with Western knives is that when you sharpen this knife and you remove steel across the whole blade, as you go back and hit this like finger guard or whatever you want to call it, you'll end up creating a recurve. So what you have to do is you have to grind this down, this little bottom section here. You need to grind down with your blade to have it match. Otherwise, when you go to use your blade, what will happen is the back part here will hold your knife off the cutting board, and you won't be able to use this back portion of your knife. So you can see that mine, I'm able to get all the way to the back because I ground this down a little bit. So they're both good choices. It's just what your preference is. If I had to choose all over again, I would skip the Wustofs and I would go just for Japanese cutlery. Chef Knives to Go is where I've gotten a lot of my stuff from. I like Mark Richmond. He's very knowledgeable and he's very fair, and he has a lot of budget options. So even if you're not able to afford a knife like this, you can still find a stainless Tojiro that'll offer you the same thing that this will, maybe not as aesthetically pleasing, for half the amount of money. For under $100, you can guarantee get a great piece of Japanese cutlery from Chef Knives to Go and a bunch of other places too. You're paying for aesthetics with this. It's no more than aesthetics. even the Classic, which is less aesthetically pleasing, I think is about a $100 knife. You're still going to get the same quality steel. It's Rockwell to the same number. You just won't get the sashimi finish, and you won't get the Damascus pattern weld like you will on here. I think it's just like a single weld, or it might even be layered, a few, like 16 layers or something like that, I forget. But it's, you know, it's not as beautiful as this knife, but as you can tell, this thing has gotten some work put into it, so it doesn't look as beautiful anymore. So, you know, eventually the knife is going to get used and it won't look perfect, but it is what it is. That's the whole point of having a knife. I'd say this is probably my most used knife, in conjunction with one that I made by hand, the 01 Tool Steel Cutlery that I've shown on previous videos. I love this knife because it's stainless, so you don't have to worry. You can, you know, slice a lemon and leave the lemon juice on the blade for a few seconds and wipe it, you know, let's say a minute later, and you're not gonna rust the blade. Whereas my 01 Tool Steel, if I do that with a lemon, if I leave it for more than like 5-10 seconds, I've got, you know, a patina continuing. So that's something to think about. That's what's great about Western cutlery too, is usually it's always a stainless steel. The handle ergonomics on this are good. They're not great. It feels very blocky. It's not. So some kitchen knives are like a handshake, if that makes sense. When you grab your handle, it feels like it's grabbing your hand back. That's what I get with the Shun Premier. I don't find that the Wusthof Classic does that. The Shun Premier is a warm feeling handle, and it feels like it's grabbing my hand back. Like, just the ergonomics of it are really great. You can use this for hours and it's still comfortable. The Shun has it all over the Wusthof in that regard. These are, you know, a little bit different caliber. The Wusthof is a cheaper knife, but not by a whole lot actually. The Wusthof is very cold feeling. The handle is functional, but it's not like very well thought out. I've heard that the Wusthof icons are like phenomenal. That the handle ergonomics on the icons, which are a step up from this, are really well thought out. I was gonna get a Wusthof icon chef's knife. The reason I didn't is because the steel is the same, so I didn't feel that just for the handle ergonomics it was worth the money, because you're talking like twice the amount as what a Classic is. Fit and finish isn't as good on this. You're getting a pretty good price for a whole set, and that's kind of what you're paying for. And I didn't really know about knives as much as I do now. If I could do it all over again, I wouldn't buy a set. I would buy single knives as I see fit. And that's a big part of why my wife got me this, is she knew that I enjoyed knives, especially kitchen knives, and I like good steel. And she got me this because she knew that I already had a set and I didn't need a Shun set. This is the workhorse knife. These both are the workhorse knife of the bunch. The 8-inch chef's knife, I feel like you can do 90% of tasks in the kitchen, and you only need like a petty or a paring knife or something to get like with your smaller tasks. This is a very maneuverable knife for an 8-inch chef's knife. I can debone chicken just fine with this. I just choose to use a Deba or like a petty to debone chicken, because I find that that's easier to use. You know, it's a comfort thing and a convenience thing more than it is a necessity. This knife will do most tasks in the kitchen. These knives are essentially identical, basically in every way. The blades are both 8 inches. The handles they're about 4.5 inches roughly. So if we go to the end of the blade right here, the Shun is like 5.25 inches to the back of the bolster, and if we go to the back of the Wusthof Classic, all the way to the butt of the handle, we also get 5 1/4, maybe like 5 3/16. So they're very similar in that way. It's just that the Shun is a little bit lighter, more maneuverable, thinner. So with the better geometry, the better heat treat, I prefer this knife. But there's not huge differences with these, but big enough that I felt it warranted keeping this knife. And because my wife had said, I don't know exactly what to get you for a knife. If you want to return it, get whatever you want. But the fact that she even listened enough to get me a knife that was close enough to what I wanted, I obviously kept it. And it is a great knife. So this is my quick comparison on the Shun and the Classic, between the Shun Premier and the Wusthof Classic. I know they're a little bit, if you guys have any questions about these knives, if you have any questions about the Wusthof set, or anything about the Shun Premier in general, leave them in the comments. You can email me about them. I'll probably do some sharpening videos on them. I'm going to have more sharpening videos coming out in the near future. It seems like most of my subscribers like sharpening videos, so I'll probably, along with my working pocket knives, bridge it with sharpening videos, and we'll just keep this ball rolling. Thank you guys for coming along. This is Mike with I Heart Knives. Please go ahead and like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks again, as always, for watching my videos. I appreciate all you guys. Have yourselves a great day.